Hello, welcome to this tutorial on how to use AI generated images inside Unreal Engine. I posted a couple of videos a few days ago, and I got a lot of questions on how I did this. So I figured I'm just gonna do a quick show and tell. Uh, Now, one thing I want to say right up front is that this is essentially a 2.5D process. So this is useful for creating cutscenes or for motion picture creation. It's useful for potentially creating environments on an XR screen, for LED volumes or even green screen. It is, I don't think it's particularly useful for anybody who is interested in doing this for game design. But that's gonna be your decision. Now, the technique in itself is actually not new. This is something that's been used in compositing quite a bit. What is new is that I'm using AI generated images, and even though I'm aware that other people are using some of this stuff inside the engine, I haven't really seen any tutorials on how to do it. So um, I just messed about with it until I had this to a point where I felt like it was looking, okay. But I'm sure that there are possibly other techniques that I'm not aware of, and if you if you guys know of that, of something that could be improved upon, please put a post underneath this video. I'd love to see it, to hear it, how you're approaching this. Okay, so the very first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go over here to Photoshop, and so these are I've just pulled up here a couple of AI generated images. So these were created in Midjourney. Um, in the projects that I've been doing, I didn't go straight from Midjourney picture to to the engine. There was an intermediate step, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Even though this is what I'm going to do in this tutorial, I'm just going to grab these pictures and show you how I would use this technique to bring them in. But so here is the for that video that was in the beginning of this tutorial. This is how this was kind of assembled. So this is our background right here. And so ultimately what I did is I used a whole series of AI generated images to then create a composite. So I'm just going to turn this on so you can see kind of like how this image is created. And again, this is ultimately, this is, a matte painting process. This is, exactly how you would go about matte painting stuff for visual effects. So you can see how this entire image, just comes together um, like this. And then I saved this out as just a flat image, without any layers. And the next step then was, to create a depth map. That's, we need kind of like, essentially we need a three-dimensional information. Um, and there are multiple tools out there. As a matter of fact, there's even a plugin for Photoshop, as far as I know. But one thing that I ran into when searching online that I kind of liked was, because it was really, really quick, was this little thing here. So this is convert.leiapix.com. And you're really, it's extremely simple. So all you do is you just go, right here, upload. So let me find my folder for this tutorial. And I'm gonna do this here as our background. I'm just gonna open this. This thing is gonna do, its thing, and then it's gonna generate our depth map, and here it is. So you can also go in here and paint around on it, which I'm not gonna do at this point. You can see it's not perfect right here. This rock has, there's some issues right here. But, you know, for this being a free, really fast online tool, I don't think this is bad at all. So all you do then now is just, you know, go share. And we're only interested in a depth map, and I'm going to save this. And here it is. And then I'm just going to drag this into my folder. And I have a depth map, and I don't need this software anymore. So we're good. Okay, so I think we're done with Photoshop. And now all I'm going to do is go into the engine right here that I've already prepared, but I didn't prepare it yet fully in what we're going to need. So one of the things that we are going to need is our modeling. So you can see right here, modeling is not enabled. So we're going to have to go into plugins and just type in model. And there's several modeling plugins. Feels like it's always getting more and more. I think it's this one and this one. And then it's going to have to restart. So I'll take a minute. All right, that was that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start straight from scratch. I'm just going to start in a brand new level. So I'm going to create a new level. And I'm going to call this AI tutorial. And open my level. And it's going to be pitch black, which is fine. And I'm going to save all of this. Okay, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create with my modeling tools right here. I'm going to create a plane. This case right here, I forgot what the maximum size here is. Okay. Well, actually, I can probably leave it at 100, but we're just going to add a whole bunch of subdivisions. Okay, and we cannot really see it. You would usually see it if there was a light right here, but it doesn't matter. Just gonna click it and click accept. We're good. All right, and now we're gonna have to create a material. So I'm gonna create a new folder, call this materials. Then I'm gonna create another new folder. I'm gonna call this background. Now I'm gonna create my material, m_background. And I'm gonna open this. Save all. Actually, let me now bring in our background. So we have our image. So I'm gonna drag that in here. And these are not square, which, you know, it would have been good if I would have done that, but I didn't. So we're just gonna have to adjust for that. All right. So we've got our depth map, we've got our image. That's all we're gonna need. And we're gonna open up our material here again. Sorry, this is like I'm working here with multiple monitors, and the way this works here is that it always collapses is when I try to just bring it in so you can see it on the other side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag those two into here. And we can convert them to right-click and convert to perimeters, because that way we can use this. We can then use an instance to just, you know, keep working with this. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my material, and I am going to change this here. Where is it? Unlit. So the reason I do this is because essentially we're creating a light. So this is going to be an emissive light. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want other lights to affect my my light, right here. So which would happen. So it's, it would end up washing it out. So if I just created this unlit, I'm not going to have the problem. And the next step is actually, really simple. So you just hold M, left click for a multiply node, and we're going to need a couple of those. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to need 4. And so first thing is we are going to get a color for, so this is going to be a vector. And that I'm gonna call color, nope, color adjust. And then we're gonna plug that into this multiply and plug that in here. And by default, we're gonna make this white. Otherwise we can't see it. So this is gonna permit us to adjust the, the color off this. So if you want to make it a little bit more blue or a little more yellow or, whatever, this is going to let you do that. So you just click on here and, just tweak it, and that's going to permit you to do this. And that's then going to go into the second multiply, and the second multiply, which is going to hold S and left click for a perimeter. And this is just going to be brightness. And that will, as it says, it's just going to make it brighter. So we're just going to multiply this output by, this number, which by default we're going to call this 1. And that's going to permit us to make the image brighter or darker, which, we probably will need to do. And that then goes straight into our emissive. And now we essentially have an emissive light. So the thing with the depth map, there is 2 ways of doing this, and I'm going to show you both ways. So this is one way. When 5 came around, it took our displacement out of here, but there's a little way to get around this. But there's pros and cons to this. This is then ultimately something you need to decide. Which way you want this. So the first thing we're going to need is vertex normal right here. So we want this node. We're going to multiply this into here. And if you would not use that, what would happen is that the depth is going to shear off, at an angle. And this is gonna make sure it's going into the direction of the normals, if I understand this correct. So, and now we're gonna plug this into here, and I'm just gonna call this now. So we're gonna do another perimeter. So hold S and left click, and then we are gonna call this depth. Gonna plug that in there, and maybe give this a default value of 1 for now, and that then goes into our world position offset, and we're gonna apply. And our first material is done. So that is this. I'm just going to put this over to the other monitor, and I'm going to create an instance. And I have my plane selected. I'm just going to drop this instance onto my plane, and we can now actually see it. So now I'm going to rotate it. So let's see. So we're not. So 90. Okay. And you can see that we're squishing it together now because it wasn't a square. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust this, and I'm just eyeballing this like so. All right. And there is already a slight bit of displacement going on, right? Because you see that? Because, we punched in the number 1, but let's take a look, to make this more severe. So I've got right here now my instance open. Here's my brightness and my depth. And I'm just gonna, go with something extreme and maybe put in, I really don't know what it's gonna be, but sometimes it can be in the thousands. So I'm gonna go 4,000, and that's gonna displace it by a good chunk. It might be a little much. So let's bring this back to maybe 400, see what happens. Now, one thing we did not do is we did not do this in relation to a camera yet. So clearly 400 is still too much here. So let's try 100. Okay. All right. So one of the things that is, missing here is a relationship to, a scale relationship, which we should be doing, because right now, I'm only doing this with the viewport, which is fine, but we're gonna have to redo this whole thing again if once the camera is up. So first thing, you can bring in Manny or Mini, but I tend to just drop in our basic character cylinder. So let me see if I can see him. Let me just zero all of this out. They are zeroed. So we're just gonna, oh, okay, all right. We are actually on the small side. So our background is actually on the small side, so you can see. So we're gonna have to scale this up. So I'm just gonna lock this. So this cylinder essentially represents, kind of like average human height. And, I go now here by, the size of the leaves or something. It's since this is just nature, it's fairly. So maybe 8.5. Something like this, maybe. And now I don't need that character anymore for now, so I'm just gonna hide this. So now you can see our it's stretching a lot less, it's displacing a lot less. And the next thing, to figure out our perfect, value of displacement that we should be using, we probably want to put in a camera. So I'm gonna go Cine Camera Actor. So I'm going to drop in a Cine Camera Actor. I'm actually going to look through it. And then I'm not gonna go detailed now through these settings here. This would be a whole lot of tutorial, but there's a few things to note here. So when it comes to motion picture production, there is two selections that make a lot of sense. I mean, the others could make sense too, but then it depends, right? So Super 35 and 35 millimeter VistaVision is kind of the most commonly used ratio of sensors nowadays. So I'm just going to stick with my VistaVision. The way this is going to impact, the way if you're choosing this here or that here, is that Super 35 is a smaller sensor than VistaVision is, which means that your focal lengths on the smaller the sensor, the wider your focal lengths are going to be. So unfortunately, this is not kind of like in order here. It would be great if they would have it from like, small to large, but they don't. So it's kind of, Super 8 is the smallest. But then, Micro Four Thirds is smaller than it's in the range of here of Super 35, this neighborhood here. So, but ultimately, this here means that you are going to use a wider angle lens, which means greater depth of field, so more deep focus. This here is a larger sensor, which means you're going to use longer focal lengths, which means you're going to get shallower depth of field, which nowadays is kind of like the way motion picture production is going. So I'm just gonna choose this here, and you can see instantly our the lens we were having on just pop back. Now by default, I honestly don't know why by default we have an 11.8 millimeter lens. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. I don't know why. But in this particular case, let's try 50 as our normal lens. Maybe, yeah, I'm gonna leave this at 50 now, and then we can play around with this. I'm also gonna change my aperture to 1.2, which is the widest opening that by default this is set to. Again, this is going to affect our depth of field. I'm gonna up my diaphragm blade count because that's going to increase, the quality of my bokeh, which is the out of focus quality. And then somewhere in here, yeah, there's the crop settings. So we are going to, well, it's funny that there's actually no, I believe this is new, the crop settings. And it's actually funny that there's no 1.85:1 in here. All right. Well, I'm going to go with 177, which is the closest at this point. But, okay, hang on. Here it is. So here, kind of type it in. 1.85 is probably the most common crop ratio. All right. So, another thing we are going to need to do is and for that, we're going to drop in a post-process volume. There we are. Which a post-process volume has a lot of the same exact settings. But what I want to do, so first of all, we're going to make sure that it's going to affect everything. Let me just type in infinite. Okay. And now I'm going to go into exposure, and we're going to turn this here to manual and this here to 0. And then we can go back into our camera. Take a look here. So this is the reason I'm setting this up like that is to kind of like deal with realistic, somewhat realistic values. Because you know, otherwise it's going to happen that you're you could get weird artifacting if you're not dealing with this. So in this case scenario now, we want our, there it is. No. There. It's like, it always gets me. It's like, because it's on the lens is the camera setting, which is why. Okay. All right, so our shutter speed, we're going to shoot 24 frames per second, which means our shutter speed is 1/48th of a second and not 1/60th. And then our ISO, your average motion picture camera is probably at this point somewhere around 500, 800 ISO. So I'm just going to punch in 800 right here. You can see we can see some, but not, you know, not much yet. But here's the thing. Remember, this is a light, right? So what I'm just now going to do is I'm going to adjust my brightness, right, in right here. So obviously the ideal thing is to do this, you know, on the second monitor so I can see what's happening. But the way it looked to me, it's gonna have to be, you know, quite a bit brighter. So let me see what happens. All right, so this did not do the trick yet. So let me. All right, so this is. Okay. All right, so we have this now set on 30. Okay, so now we are looking through our camera, yes. And now we can also, we're not in focus. We can do this. And now we can adjust our depth. So I'm just going to start upping the number now. I don't like what's happening to those rocks down there, but, you know, at this point. Okay, but you can see right here now that we are getting a three-dimensionality. So so obviously this image is very narrow. So you saw before what I did is I you know, I widened the image significantly for the reason so I have more travel, right? And you know, things like this, that there you're just gonna have to, you know, figure out a way, or probably in this case I might actually go into Photoshop and take that rock out. This may actually be smarter, and then just place actually a 3D rock in the foreground, right? Same thing here, you know, where it stretches so extreme on the sides. You know, you're gonna have to build something. You know, if this is in the shot. If it's not in the shot, then it doesn't matter all that much. Okay, so now you can see a little bit of three-dimensionality here happening. And now I'm gonna try, you know, I'm gonna show you the other technique where it's not, I mean, it's part of the same. So I'm just gonna dump this in here, and it's not color adjusted, so it may not actually work all that well, but you know, just to give you an idea. So I'm now going to create another material. I'm going to call this foreground. And in this case scenario, I'm going to drop these here in. And honestly, hang on. I actually can figure this out. Can look this up, which one the right one is. Okay. Yeah, that one. Okay. So this mask I already made in painted in Photoshop. So in this case, we are going to make a masked material of this. So like this here. Let me put this over to the side. I'm just gonna show this to you from scratch. Okay, so here is our masked material. We're again going to turn this into unlit, but in this case, it's going to be a masked surface. And now I'm again going to drag all of these here in. And we can again convert those to perimeters. Okay, and now we are gonna do the same thing that we did on the other one. We could just copy it over, but M left click twice for multiply, and then it's a vector 3. We convert that to the parameter 2. So same as before, we're going to make this white for now. Then the brightness. And this then goes into the emissive. We're going to get this a default of 1 for now. Okay, and now we are just going to plug this here straight into our mask opacity. So I'm using the red channel here. You could use the RGB channel too. And you see immediately it's masking out this area. And now, yeah, here's my depth. Now, if we're going to do the same thing now that we did before with my depth map, what's going to happen is the edges of my geometry are going to show up. And that would be a problem. So in this particular case, I'm going to do this different. So I'm going to create another plane, same way than before. So rectangle, leave all these settings. Accept it. Okay, and then see how much bigger we made the other one. 8.5. So let's do this here too. Let's make 10. Okay. And now, let's save all of this. Okay, so I just saved the texture for it to show up. And then I'm going to create a material instance. Then I'm going to drop this on there, and it's going to be too dark. So we are going to, first of all, it's slightly in the wrong position, and it's going to be too dark. But let's one after the other. Even though, let's see what's going on here. Okay. All right. So we go into our instance and adjust our brightness to, I think the other one was 30. So that's what I'm going to do here too. This is too bright. So 25, 20. Okay. So now I'm going to bring this forward. I'm going to rotate this over here. Now we're going to adjust the scale horizontally because, again, this was not a square. So somewhere here. But you see our mask is nicely punching this out. And, you know, you can see at this point where we're going with this, what the point of this here is. So I'm going to turn this down. Okay, so still a little bit bright. Let's call this 10. Yeah, so this matches better, I think. All right. And so now we do also want to displace this. And as I said earlier, if we are doing this in here, if we are going to do this in here, like we did with the other one, what's going to happen is an edge is going to show up here where the frame ends. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go into our modeling tools, and with this plane selected, we are going to find our displacement right here. And we are going to go to the texture map. And then we're going to drop this one into here. And then the displace intensity, we just have to play around with. So I don't know. Okay. I don't see a change happening. Okay. No, I did. All right, so this may not be bad, but maybe let's split the difference. Let's go 150. So again, the idea is like, I mean, what's really far away here, you know, you might not want to have this in the shot, but you can see that I'm just going to hit accept here. And then we can position it, because you can see that this area here doesn't look bad at all. Okay. Get rid of this here. All right. Let's make this a little bigger. Yeah, obviously you want to work with a wider background, so than this here is. But this is meant to be a tutorial, not a, you know, complete project. So you can see right here, now we're going to go into our camera. Maybe I'm going to go on a 75 mil. Permits me to back up a little bit. And you can now definitely start to see, you know, our three-dimensionality here. So maybe we can even rotate this. Let's kind of emphasize this a little bit more even. So you can see how this is now starting to work, right? You see how now also how our, you know, shallow depth of field is supporting this. So depending on, you know, where we place our focus. All right, so there we go. And now, you know, now you can essentially, you know, embellish this but with dropping in rocks, maybe a water plane, you know, a whole bunch from the Megascans, a whole bunch of planes, right? So if we are now bringing through the bridge here some planes, I don't want to go too much into this now because I think you have now seen how this is done, but see if I can just grab some sort of planes very quickly. Okay, no, there's a good chance that the color is going to be off of these here. We'll see. And of course now, you know, the lighting is also going to be missing. So there are no lights in here. So because remember our backdrops are emissive lights. So this here is going to be completely black now. So in order to see this, we are going to have to drop in a okay. And now, of course, you know, you have to play with the light color, the light direction. So take a look. So this is obviously coming from the wrong direction. Okay, so you see how this is starting to kind of like blend in. and become part of the scene, right? And it's now a three-dimensional object in here. So if you now start to do this with rocks and plants, you know, and other objects, you're going to end up relatively quickly with a, you know, potentially very impressive scene. So yeah, this is pretty much the workflow here. I hope you got something out of it. And yeah, as I said earlier, I am, you know, if you guys figure something out on how to make this even better and cooler and, you know, do more stuff with it, I would love to hear from you. I would love to see it. I hope this helped some of you out. I, you know, hope you're gonna do something awesome with it, and also if you do something awesome with it, please share, right? I want to see it. I want to see what everybody else does. Have a good one. Bye bye.